Thank you for joining today's White House and U.S. Treasury press call announcing the Treasury Department's approval to expand access to capital for small businesses in Illinois and Louisiana, under the American Rescue Plan State Small Business Credit Initiative. Joining us today is Senior Advisor to the President and American Rescue Plan Coordinator Gene Sperling, U.S. Treasury Chief Recovery Officer Jacob Liebenluft, Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards, and Senator Tammy Duckworth from Illinois. Following remarks, we will open it up for some questions. But please note, this briefing is on the record, but embargoed until its conclusion. And with that, I'll pass it to Gene.
Thank you so much. Today's a big day for the State Small Business Credit Initiative, which is really one of the jewels of the American Rescue Plan for entrepreneurs, venture capital, and most importantly, the small businesses who are the main source of job creation and, responsible for 54% of employees in Louisiana and 45% of employees in Illinois. We're actually announcing 7 state awards today at $1.5 billion. This will bring the total to $6.3 billion. But let me just say, before I turn to Jacob, just a little bit about the rationale and reasoning and philosophy really in the American Recovery Plan for including such a robust state small business credit initiative. I think what is so important about the American Rescue Plan was that it was designed it was definitely designed to get us out of the hole, both health-wise and economic-wise, of the pandemic. But that wasn't the sole goal. It wasn't just to get us out of that deep hole in 2021. It was to ensure that there were resources and tools to have a strong, enduring, and equitable recovery. And so while there were many small business initiatives, restaurant program, others that were designed to make sure no one closed their doors due to the pandemic, we also wanted to make sure there were proposals in there that was going to allow recovery with more small businesses opening doors, creating new jobs, doing new ventures. And so that was the reason behind the State Small Business Credit Initiative. Jacob and I are both proud that we were part of the initial State Small Business Credit Initiative, which was in 2010. It was $1.5 billion, and we saw that it could leverage up to $10 for every dollar spent. And that success led to a large, commitment to expand it. And so this has been $10 billion. And again, I think that when you go to the rationale, it was to ensure that as we started to come out and people felt confident enough to start new businesses and grow new businesses, that there was the capital, there was the financing, there was the loans, and there was the venture capital, particularly for those who, even in normal times, often are underrepresented in getting capital financing. And of course, that means the smallest businesses in rural areas, minority business owners, often female business owners. We saw with the State Small Business Credit Initiative that it led to growth and good ideas and ensured that people with good ideas were not discriminated against in financing because of their zip code or their gender or the color of their skin. But we also tried to make some improvements. This includes $500 million in technical assistance. We realize that's important for states to have that capacity for outreach and technical assistance for small businesses who can't afford to hire a big fancy consultant to understand what they were doing. So we're really, really honored to highlight 2 of the states, Louisiana and Illinois. and very honored that Senator Duckworth and Governor Bell Edwards have joined us. But before we go to them, let me turn it over to Jacob Liebenluft while I coordinate the American Rescue Plan across all the administration. A very large bulk of those funds go through Treasury, and Jacob is the first ever Chief Recovery Officer at Treasury, and as you can imagine, is my partner almost on a daily basis, and has done just an absolutely stand-up job. Jacob, floor is yours.
Well, thanks so much, Gene, and thank you to Governor Edwards and Senator Duckworth for joining us and for being champions of small businesses and entrepreneurs in your communities. Today, as Gene mentioned, the Department of Treasury is announcing that an additional 7 states have been approved to receive up to $1.5 billion in funding through the American Rescue Plan State Small Business Credit Initiative. When President Biden signed the American Rescue Plan into law, he launched a historic commitment to support those most impacted by COVID-19 and foster a strong recovery. As part of this historic relief package, President sought and Congress enacted $10 billion for the State Small Business Credit Initiative to spur small business growth in all communities across the country, building off the work Treasury had done in the first iteration of the program, as Gene mentioned. We also know that the same small businesses who too often have been traditionally shut out of the financial system, including minority-owned small businesses, were hit the hardest by the economic impact of COVID-19. So that's why, working with Congress, we intentionally designed SSBCI to drive investments to underserved entrepreneurs. Today's announcement reflects the progress that we're making in this effort. Today, we're approving plans from Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Louisiana, North Dakota, Oklahoma, and Virginia. As Gene mentioned, Treasury has now announced the approval of state plans totaling up to $6.3 billion in funding. And to give you just a flavor of some of the plans being approved today, Illinois, approved for up to $354.6 million, will operate 4 programs: a new loan guarantee program, 2 loan participation programs, one through the existing Advantage Illinois structure, and a new program focused on supporting businesses in the green energy sector, and a new equity venture capital program for small businesses. This expanded program offering from the state through SSBCI will enable Illinois to support small businesses across the state, helping them attract more capital investment, expand or launch business operations, and support the state's transition to zero emissions. Louisiana, approved for up to $113 million, will operate 5 programs, including an equity venture capital program that will provide equity support for small businesses by investing as a limited partner in qualified venture capital funds. The state's programs will target impact funds focused on increasing access to equity capital for underserved startups. And Florida, which was approved for $488.4 million, will allocate $250 million of that to its collateral support program, providing cash collateral accounts to financial institutions to enhance the collateral coverage of borrowers. Its program is generally modeled on a state-sponsored SBA 504 bridge loan program, which has operated since 2017. In addition, Florida has allocated $100 million to the Florida Venture Capital Program, which makes equity co-investments in emerging Florida companies. That's just a flavor of some of the activities across the 7 states whose plans were approved today. My office and the entire Treasury Department look forward to continuing the work with these states as they receive this critical funding, and we're especially excited to see the impact of this program in communities across the nation in the months and years ahead. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Gene and the rest of our program.
Well, thank you. I will introduce the governor, but I just want to say we talked about the first plan, the first SSBCI in 2010. Back then, Louisiana got 13 million. It looks like 13 million again, but it's actually 113 million. So it's a good add, that little 100 million, which could leverage 600-700 $1 billion. So this is, 9 times the size of the award they received before. So disproportionately larger than even the overall increase in the program. And I also just want to thank the governor for his just overall commitment to economic development in Louisiana using American Rescue Plan funds. When I talked about this as one of the programs that was designed less to deal with the immediate initial year of the pandemic, but to help have a strong recovery, one of the other programs that we had was the Build Back Better Regional Challenge out of Commerce Department. That's probably the most competitive program that we had, with just 21 winners out of 530 applicants. And he not only played a big role in helping to develop and work with the Greater New Orleans Development Foundation, but put skin in the game, put state money in to their effort to close the gap between green hydrogen, produced from renewable energy resources. And, so that kind of commitment. And then lastly, in my job, one of the things that helps is be able to just get someone on the phone and shoot straight what's working, what's not working. And unfortunately, the governor gave me his cell phone, and I use it to get his counsel. So thank you for that, Governor. And I want to turn the floor over to you.
Gene, thank you. And I appreciate you and Jacob and really all of our federal partners, and in particular, the Biden administration, for helping make this happen. We're excited about the State Small Business Credit Initiative. It's going to mean an infusion, as you said, of up to $113 million into Louisiana small business community and our entrepreneurial ecosystem. And that is a tremendous boost to economic resilience and diversification. And those are two things that we are super focused on here in Louisiana, in particular because it gives us a historic opportunity in those underserved urban and rural communities that have struggled to attract business capital and investment. And when I talk to small business people, especially those who are disadvantaged, access to capital is the number one inhibitor to success. And so this is going to grow capacity. It is going to grow wealth. It's going to mean more success. And reversing those kinds of historical trends would be impossible without a shared commitment by the states and by our federal partners. So I want to thank President Biden for his leadership on this. I want to thank Congress, particularly those members who supported the American Rescue Plan, and certainly Treasury Secretary Yellen. This makes social and economic change and transformation possible. And we're going to make sure we take full advantage of that and that we're successful. The reason we want to be successful, the reason we are going to be successful is because we've long recognized that small business really is the backbone of our economy. And I know you hear that around the country, and it's always true. Here in Louisiana, more than 99% of our businesses are small businesses. 53% of our employees are employed by a small business. And in a state with 4.65 million people, there are 464,000 small businesses out there. So that kind of tells you how important this is to us. But we also know the small businesses bore some of the most challenging economic burdens since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, which were compounded here. And look, there have been natural disasters elsewhere, but I kind of want to make sure everybody understands. And in 2020 and 2021, we had 5 hurricanes, 2 of which were the strongest to ever hit our state during the worst parts of the pandemic. And so we have wonderful business leaders, business owners. They are resilient, but certainly can use some help. And they're the reason, quite frankly, that our economic recovery is not only progressing, but thriving. Many people don't know this. Today, our unemployment rate is 3.3%. That's the lowest in the history of our state. It's never been measured that low before. And so we've got some momentum going, but we know there's more to do. And that's why this program is so important. It's going to accelerate our efforts by putting substantial federal funding into capital programs for small businesses, for entrepreneurs, and focusing on those most in need of support in our state. And particularly exciting to me, not just 113 million, which is a lot of money. This is a big investment. It's a large effort. But up to 91.5 million of that is allocated to venture capital programs that go beyond the traditional collateral support, loan guarantee and microloan programs that we have had in place for a while and have focused on in other efforts. But we're actually going to invest in new ideas. We're going to invest in innovation. And quite frankly, these things may never come to life in these businesses without this type of a program. And by working through established programs established by the Louisiana Department of Economic Development, whose rules were developed earlier this year. We've been working on this for more than 6 months. But those rules are going to allow us to comply with the SSBCI guidelines. And therefore, we're confident that we can get these dollars into the hands of Louisiana business owners and entrepreneurs as efficiently and quickly as possible. Look, we know that the targeted businesses don't have government relations employees. They don't have lobbyists, and they don't have teams of consultants who scour looking for the inventory of opportunities out there and then help them put forward applications and so forth. So we are hyper-focused on making this as easy as possible for them. And it's important to remember that approval of Louisiana's allocation is but an important early step. This is the starting line. It certainly isn't the finish line. And even though we've been working on this for 6 months, we know we've got a ways to go. There's a process of qualifying and opting in as a participating provider, and that's going to be ongoing for several months. The same is true for the application processes, which will vary by program, by fund, and by lender. And they may even evolve over time as we capture lessons learned and learn from what our own experiences are and perhaps from what other states are doing. So education is going to be critical, and we've created a website. It's louisianassbci.com that will keep people informed. So we're excited about this opportunity. We think this is going to be a tremendous program for our state for all the reasons that Gene mentioned. And we appreciate being included in the second round of funding opportunities, and to be included at such a high level of funding, $113 million, and having the flexibility to fashion 5 programs to meet our needs here in Louisiana. This is what federal-state partnership is supposed to look like. And Gene, I thank you for your work on this.
Well, thank you very much. And I will say, I'm so glad you have that singular website, because I know that makes a big difference. And I know some places have done a lot. I won't name any states but they didn't, find that simple, place for people to go and learn about the program. And that's something we've learned at the federal level too. So thank you so much. One thing that's easier about having governors than members of Congress is they tend to be able to control their schedule a little. And every once in a while we get, we had Senator Duckworth. I just got a note saying she is something, Senate emergency, unpredictable thing came up, and does not look like she's going to be able to make it in time. If she does,
Gene, would you believe that J.B. Pritzker has authorized me to take his $300 million and add it to our 113 here in Louisiana?
That doesn't sound like JB, but I'll take your word for it because you're here. But let me do this. Let me ask, Jeff Stout works with Jacob, and he is the person in charge of implementation of the state small business credit initiative. And so, Jeff, I thought before we go to questions, because if the senator makes it in time at the end, we will put her on. But as she's not on now, do you want to try to give a little bit more detail on the Illinois award?
Sure. Thanks,
Governor Bell Edwards steals it away.
Sounds good. Just really quickly, Illinois was approved for $354 million allocation of SSBCI Capital Program funds. And they are going to run 4 different programs. 3 of them are managed by the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. One of those is a direct investment venture capital program, which builds on a similar program that they operated in the first iteration of SSBCI. And then they'll also operate a loan participation program and a loan guarantee program to reach bank and CDFI lenders. And then finally, the Illinois Finance Authority is going to administer a loan participation program that's focused on transactions led by or coordinated by the Illinois Finance Authority Climate Bank. So a climate-focused loan participation program, which is a bit unique. We see that in 3 or 4 other states where they're coordinating this effort with their climate transition efforts as well. So that's a very brief overview of the types of programs. I'd say it reflects what many states are doing, coordinating a portfolio of programs that reach the smallest of the small businesses, but also enable equity investment in high growth potential businesses that can create jobs locally.
I just, before I turn it back to you, Seth, for questions, I just want to make one point, which is, then candidate Biden, when he was running, was, I will say, one of many, many political leaders who would make the point that there was a lot of venture capital in the United States, but it was all in a few cities in Silicon Valley or New York or Boston, and that we had to bring venture capital, to all of America. So a lot of people would make that point, but there wasn't always a solution. The State Small Business Credit Initiative didn't mandate that you had to do anything for venture capital, but you heard the governor talking about the sizable amount that they are doing. So while people raise that point a lot of the unequal geographic, not just demographic, but geographic distribution of venture capital, and say, what are you doing about it? Well, this program and what you're hearing from the governor is an example of people of what we federal and state government are doing together to do something about that. So Seth, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Gene. We'll now have a few minutes for questions. If you do have a question, please use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen to queue yourself up, and we'll give you a few seconds to do that. We'll go to Chuck.
Yes, thank you very much. And this question is for Governor John Bel Edwards, since I'm with Red River Radio in Shreveport, Louisiana. Governor, as far as the allocation of these funds, will there be an effort to see that they are dispersed to all of the state, or will this be primarily on a first come, first served basis?
So, Chuck, first of all, thank you very much for tuning in and for asking the question. No, we're going to make sure that these funds are allocated across the state. Economic diversity is only possible if there's also geographic diversity. And just like Gene Sperling was mentioning, that there's access to funds of this type, it's a little easier in certain areas of the country. That's also true in our state. And so we want to make sure that small businesses that are located in parts of our state where it's a little more difficult, perhaps, will have access to these funds. And that is in the program that's already been developed by LED over the last 6 months under the leadership of Brenda Guest there in the small business section at LED. And by the way, we're using the experience that we had from 10 years ago, 12 years ago, in the 2010 iteration of a state small business credit initiative. And we've captured lessons learned from that program that we are incorporating into this one. So the answer is yes, we will do that. And I appreciate the question, Chuck.
Next up, we have Chris.
Hey, Governor. Chris Rosado with WAFB. Just real quick, wanted to get an idea of where, what are some of the targeted areas you're looking at allocating some of these funds?
Well, when you say targeted areas, I can tell you that we've got 5 programs. We still have to have partners apply in terms of financial institutions, and then we're going to have businesses to apply as well to take advantage of these funding opportunities. And so I think it's a little early to say exactly which businesses or which types of businesses we want this funding to go to. But we know we want it to go to, and it will go to, small businesses. The vast majority of this, not just capital availability, but investing in innovation, in investing in new ideas through the venture capital programs, something that really doesn't exist on any meaningful level in our state. And so we will be looking at the applications as they come in and grading them on their merit according to pre-established criteria, and we will be awarding the funds in that manner. So it's a little early to get to the detail that I think you're asking for, but we will make this will be very transparent. The folks at LED, again, Don Pearson and Brenda Guest, they're gonna put all of this information out as we move forward. And so I would invite you to stay tuned and direct your questions to them a little later once the program is up and running.